Hey podcast lovers, are you ready for something special this Black Friday? Imagine getting more from the shows you love, like bonus content, ad-free episodes, and exclusive perks, all from your favourite Irish podcasts on Headstuff Plus. We're giving you 15% off an annual membership with the code HS Black Friday. That's right, unlock a full year of premium content for less. Whether you're a fan of the delicious Garran Noon, can't stop laughing out loud with Keep It Tight, or can't get the young hot guys out of your mind, there's so much to explore. Go to headstuffpodcast.com, sign up with the code HS Black Friday, and treat yourself to a whole year of amazing content.
NFL para todos neste dia de ação de graças, com uma semana de Game Pass por apenas R$ 4,99. Junte-se a nós e assista a todas as partidas, em um dia inteiro de futebol americano com muitos touchdowns e tradições icônicas. Celebre o dia de ação de graças por apenas R$ 4,99. Assine agora em @dazon.com/NFL.
This show is part of the Headstuff Podcast Network.
Just a quick heads up, there are some mentions of eating disorders and different body image concerns in this episode. It's a brilliant episode, and Nathalie very generously shared, a lot of her journey and what she's been through. So although we don't go into huge depth, there are some references there. So as always, just take care, look after yourself, and there are some support services linked in the episode description as well. Enjoy the episode. The G-Spot is sponsored by playblue.ie, Ireland's favourite adult store, and we are running an amazing competition this season where you can win over €300 worth of my Playblue picks. Keep listening to find out more. So welcome back to the G-Spot. Today I'm joined by Nathalie Lennon, who is a radio host, a content creator. Anything else I'm missing? Anything you want to add?
Few strings to my bow.
Yeah.
I guess a past and sometimes still fitness instructor, nutritional coach, and then have my own podcast as well. But we can dive into that later on.
Yes,
it's so
the
exciting
dating
to be here.
Yes, I'm so happy you're here. And today, obviously, we're going to be going into dilemmas, as always, and getting into them. And some of them are quite juicy. But just starting off, coming on a sex podcast. Now, I know you have your own podcast, which is kind of about dating, right?
Yeah,
about dating and relationships. But coming on a podcast that is about sex and intimacy, was there any hesitancy there? How did you feel about coming on?
Absolutely none.
Good.
Which is strange. I think if you asked me that a few years ago, I would have said absolutely no way.
Yeah.
But since doing the Dating Games podcast, I suppose we've tiptoed in and out of it a little bit.
Yeah.
Probably not as much. But also, is it just maturing and realising that this needs to be spoken about more? We have to break down the taboo that surrounds it. And I think over the last few years, if anyone's followed like my own journey online, I've done so much work on developing my self-confidence and not, I suppose, staying quiet just for the sake of pleasing others.
Yeah.
So just like putting myself out there more.
Yeah, great. So this can be a nice little step in that growth journey then.
Absolutely.
That now you're on a podcast, you're talking about all things sex.
Wait till I tell my nana I was on a sex podcast.
I know. My mom listens. My dad definitely doesn't. But we'll get there. Did you get sex education yourself in school?
So I feel like saying no. Like we did have 2 classes, as far as I can remember, that were somewhat sex education, but they were so poor, Grace. Yeah. They were so poor. Like it was more giggling, the lads sniggering, making jokes. Barely got to the point of what sexual intercourse actually is. Yeah. There was very little said about consent. It was more so like, this is how a baby is made.
Yeah.
Nothing about male pleasure, nothing about female pleasure, nothing about masturbation, like none of that at all. Which I think probably led my class, like my kind of age group, like in school at that time, to be very probably like uneducated when it came to it, and that's why we were so afraid to speak about it more. But no, it was so poor, and all I can say is I hope it's better now than what it was when we were in school. Like really, there was next to nothing. It was just like more so the biology of how a baby is made.
Yeah, which isn't sex education really. No. It's only a tiny, like a page in the book of sex ed. Do you mind me asking what age you were?
God, it was secondary school. Like I want to say it was probably first or second year.
Okay, right. So what age are you, like I'm trying to, you're younger than me. So I'm like
30.
You're 30. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're 2 years younger than me. So, okay, not a huge gap then. I was just wondering.
The year kind of.
Yeah, like had
Yeah.
things changed at that point, but obviously not really. Like most people say the same, that they really aren't going to.
Now, I have a feeling that when I was in school and we were given our like sex ed in quotations, because it wasn't really, like in urban environments, it probably was at that point becoming a little bit more forward.
Yeah.
But we were such a country school, and like the teacher that we had, God bless her, she was a lovely woman, but she was a lot older and from a completely different generation again. So I think, you know, I wouldn't expect my like great auntie to go in and give sex ed. Like she was quite old. Nothing against her, but how was she supposed to have been educated on where things are at now?
Yeah.
So maybe that was somewhat to do with why it was so behind and backward.
Yeah, well, I think things hopefully have changed a bit.
I think so.
They have.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you used to work in school, so they must have if you were in there.
Yeah, and I have a program still going in schools, which is growing, thankfully, and the curriculum is changing and all of that. So yeah, I think things are moving in a positive direction, but I mean, the only way to go is up anyway.
Yes.
Because they really weren't great.
Yeah. No.
And did you find then, you know, not having, again, this sex education that ideally we should be getting in school, like good, comprehensive, like sex positive education. Did you find that affected you in certain ways then as a young woman when you were, you know, becoming a young adult and dating and obviously, you know, maybe starting to have sexual relationships? Like,
Definitely.
how did it affect you?
I guess now that you say it, I'm probably realising the like contrast that there was between urban education and like rural education when it came to sex ed. Now maybe it was education or maybe it was just peer groups talking more. But like I remember going to the Gael Talk summer of, was it second year, and being with Dublin girlos, and they were such crack. Like I still remember Stacey to this day, and I have no idea where she is.
Shout
and
out
Julie.
Stacey.
Yeah, they were such fun, but they knew so much more than we did.
Okay.
But they were also like just talking about things so much more openly.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, or like, what's that? Or like, she did what? Like, it was just so much more taboo in the countryside or amidst my friend circle. And slowly that started to change. Yeah. So like at the Gael Talk, I guess that's where these things are starting to happen a little bit more. And like, you know, you're really starting to get frisky. And I just think they were getting far more frisky than we were.
Yeah.
Because they were just maybe thought about it a different way.
Yeah.
And amidst themselves, they treated it differently. I think even amidst my friends when we were younger, we were maybe cautious to even say the word sex.
Yeah.
You know, maybe, I went over to his last night and we like, you know,
wink, wink. It was kind of alluded to.
Like you don't even like saying the word. And I don't know why. Is that from school? I don't know. So I do think it affected me somewhat in terms of I felt more inexperienced in comparison to other girls my age as the years went on. And like, not that that's a negative thing either, that I hadn't done what someone else had done. Maybe a part of it was, you know, we kind of mentioned this chatting before, maybe a part of it was all talk and just bigging it up.
Yeah.
It's so hard to know.
Yeah.
And as I got more comfortable in myself as the years went on, I guess I stopped comparing my experience to anyone else's. I realised this is a journey and we have to embrace it and not be so hesitant about it. But I do think rural Ireland, it's far more taboo than it is in an urban situation. Even like, it's so funny, my household compared to going into, say, a different household where they have loads of younger kids now, like that are like, you know, late teens. Whereas in my house, I'm the youngest and I'm 30.
Right. Yeah.
So the conversation at a dinner table with a big family where there's, you know, sons and daughters who are late teens.
Yeah.
So much more open.
Okay.
And like slagging each other about sexual things. But like in a lighthearted, fun way.
Yeah.
Whereas at my house, God, I love my house. I love the dinner table at my house, but there's none of that. No. There's none of that. No.
Yeah.
And if there's a whisper of it, it's like, oh.
I know.
Yeah. So the moral of the story, did it affect me a little bit? Yeah, definitely. I would have felt like I was more inadequate because I couldn't relate to what some of like other girls or guys were saying. And eventually you do and you can, but I do think it would have affected me a lot. Yeah, and there was definitely a lot of Googling to try and figure things out.
Yeah, which can go
Not
one way or the
good.
other, right?
Yeah.
Like usually it could bring you down a path of very unhelpful
Absolutely.
information.
Yeah, or it'll just scare the life out of you.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
Yeah.
it'll make you feel even more, I suppose, insecure because you're not at that level of sexual confidence.
Yeah.
I would have felt that a lot probably sitting down with the girls as well. Felt like I wasn't at that level of sexual confidence. I went through a bit of like a roller coaster ride with it, Grace, because I'd say late teens, early 20s, when you've kind of, how do I phrase it, like secured your friskiness, like you're over the whole puberty stage completely and you're like having the crack.
Yes. Yeah.
I was very sexually confident, I would say.
Okay.
And then I got hit with severe body dysmorphia.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I mentioned to you, like I was a personal trainer. Now, before I became a health and nutritional coach, the personal training industry did me a huge disservice in that I was like, well, as a PT, I need to do a bodybuilding competition. So I started this whole bulking and cutting side of things and ended up being extremely restrictive and developing body dysmorphia and an eating disorder. That disorder not being like a classified like anorexia or bulimia. It was like you're way too obsessed with calories, you're way too body conscious, you can only eat certain foods, you have to exercise. All of this affected my sexual confidence hugely. Maybe you've spoken about that or come across it before, because I reckon there's, millions of men and women dealing with the same thing because of the like physical pressures put on by the fitness industry right now. So I went through this roller coaster of being like, I have serious sexual confidence, and then no, it was knocked down lower than ever, and I didn't know how I was ever going to feel comfortable in my body around like a sexual partner again. But look, I did the work, I overcame it, and we're back at a good place now. I suppose everyone has their days where they're probably a little bit shaky with things, and I think having gone through that, you're always fighting demons somewhat a little bit, but that would be somewhat the journey in the roller coaster.
Yeah, okay, so a bit of a roller coaster, absolutely.
Yeah, majorly.
Yeah, and we have touched on body image on the pod and we'll continue to, because it does come up and it's so related to sex. But I think, obviously body image issues kind of exist. I don't know, is this the right wording? Because I'm not an expert, but a kind of on a spectrum.
Yeah.
And what you're describing there of, actually having an eating disorder, etc. It's funny because sex is actually a part of that isn't, I don't think, discussed openly either.
No.
Because I believe that, that can affect your periods, it can affect your libido, as well as just your body image.
Yeah.
Like it can affect you in so many ways.
Yeah. I like two things I'd say there. The first is that I was probably my most sexually confident when I was my like least lean and least focused on aesthetics.
Yeah. It makes sense. So,
both sides of that, those few years that I feel like so angry at like society for. I feel like I lost like, a good chunky years in my 20s to fighting these demons. But either side of that, when I was like least obsessed with my aesthetic is when I had most sexual confidence. I think with like, you must say this, I'd say a gazillion times over, the less worth you put in your aesthetic, I suppose the more sexy you can nearly feel sometimes.
Yeah.
And then you just mentioned, your period and how it can affect that. So that's another point actually that would strongly relate to those few years where I felt like I was at the low of the roller coaster.
Yeah.
I lost my period for 6 years.
Wow.
So I came off the pill in 2017, I think it was.
Okay.
We just put on it in school, like partly as a contraceptive, partly because I had bad acne. And then when I came off it was like just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting.
Yeah.
No one educated me in school about, to be fair, I have to say, I don't think the pill affected my libido much when I was a young teenager.
Yeah.
So I had nothing to compare to either, to what was natural, because I went on it just at the time where you're starting to become sexually active.
Exactly, yeah, that makes sense.
So I've nothing to compare to. But when I came off it, absolutely no libido whatsoever, because I had absolutely no hormones in action, because no one educated us in school that if you lose too much weight, if you become too lean, there's that side of things, but even if you have a perfectly healthy body fat percentage and you put too much stress on your body, be that mental or physical, if you lose your period, you lose your libido. You kind of lose your sex life.
Yeah.
And there was 6 years of trying to get that back.
Wow.
Because once you are diagnosed with, it's called hypothalamic amenorrhea.
Yeah.
Once you're diagnosed with it, it's not as simple as just like, you know, some people might think just eat an extra bit of food and you'll be fine. It's stopping training almost completely.
Yeah, it sounds like a whole lifestyle change.
And when that's your outlet, Long story short, we won't get into the nitty gritty there, but it was a long journey where now I appreciate libido so much and being able to feel my hormones. And even that week before my period where I might be so tired or moody, I actually kind of appreciate it a little bit because I'm like, I didn't get this before.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's lovely because obviously, and rightly so, we can give out about periods and they can be a pain. And for some people, especially who have maybe endometriosis or different conditions, periods can be like debilitating to the nth degree. But on the flip side of that, you know, your gratitude actually for even
every
the
time
bad
I get my
parts.
period, as much as I'm like, oh, I'm also like, yes, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful.
That's brilliant. I'm so sorry you went through that, but I'm so
thanks.
glad you're in a better place now. And I definitely, I didn't go through what you went through, but that sense of kind of loss of the time you did lose. Like I have that in a different way when I had vaginismus for years, so couldn't have sex, and that was a whole thing that I've gone through. I think I've probably talked about it in some different episodes, but and that was kind of psychological and physiological as well. And it was an impact of living in this post-Catholic shame-filled culture. And my body felt that sex wasn't safe and I just couldn't have penetration at all.
Yeah.
And I often, like I've worked a bit in therapy over like grieving those years that I lost that should have, I say should lightly, but could have been this lovely few years of confusion and whatnot, but exploration and feeling, you know, that I suppose
comfortable in your body and trusting it maybe.
Exactly. And like, I probably wouldn't have been having great sex anyway at that age, like as a late teens and very early adulthood. But at least I would have felt that I was able to do it, that like I was able to use my body in that way. So I think it's really important that, you know, because people could be listening, and I work with so many people who are grieving years that they feel they've lost due to body image issues, illness, shame, just shame.
That's it. Yeah.
So it is important to give yourself a bit of space to say, like that's a pity, that's a shame, while also being grateful for where you are now.
Yeah, and
know?
I think also as tough as those years are for anyone, as they were for you, as they were for me, like we wouldn't be where we are right now if it wasn't for those years and those struggles, and thank God we overcame them. But we wouldn't have been able to speak about things the way we do now only for them.
Yeah, I mightn't even be in this job if I didn't have vaginismus and the bad relationships and all of that.
Like, I wouldn't be either if it wasn't for overcoming like HA and the eating disorder and all that. So as much as we grieve those years, and it's not to say if I had those years, like we were chatting off air and on my pod before about body count. It's not this thing of like I would have like slept with loads of people, but like I
might have, to be honest. Who knows? Who knows? Like 16-year-old Grace is very horny, so I don't know.
I love that. I always say like it stopped me from meeting my person. Like as those years went on, I got so like, my friends are all like partnering off with people and I can't, because I can't be sexually confident at the same time. But it all happened how it was meant to, because eventually the time came where I just met my person randomly.
Yeah. Amazing. And like even in future, and I know it's something you have to keep an eye on, especially with body image, because it can be so delicate and sensitive. But having gone through this, you can go forward knowing that, okay, there probably will be some other time in your life where you might struggle with body image significantly again, but now you have tools. You're not starting from square one, you know.
Hit the nail on the head.
Or if you have, again, issues with your libido or whatever it is, you can draw from that experience, I guess.
Absolutely,
you know?
Grace, like I've gotten to know my body on a different level, whereas now if I need, like you said, when I was coaching clients before to improve their food relationship, it's like the first time you do this is the hardest, because you're literally investing in the toolbox and buying all the tools for the first time. But once you put them all in there and you pack it away, it's always there to go back to, and you know you've done it once, you can do it again. I have no doubt in my mind I will struggle with my body image a lot on and off from time to time. It's like in my blood at this point. It's just like in my makeup. Now maybe that's not the energy I should be putting out into the world either. But I'm kind of okay with that because I know I can overcome it.
Yeah. Well, that's how you feel right now. And that's your truth, as they say. So that's okay. Okay, will we get into a dilemma?
Let's get into the dilemma.
Okay, fabulous. Lovely listeners, the toy I want to tell you about today is an absolute crowd pleaser. It is called the Endless Fun Couples Vibrator from Satisfyer, brought to you, of course, by our sponsor, PlayBlue. True to its name, the Endless Fun Vibrator is designed for maximum versatility and creativity. It's a toy that can be used in 29 different ways, solo or with a partner. So the toy adapts to what you're in the mood for. You can get so many gorgeous body parts involved, regardless of what gender you are, and it even comes with handy little diagrams on the box to give you some inspiration. Now, don't you dare forget that you can win this vibrator and every other toy we feature this season. That's a stunning collection of PlayBlue goodies worth over €300. It's super easy to enter. Just check the episode description or my Insta for the details. Our winner will be announced during the last episode of the season on December 18th. Good luck!
This show is part of Headstuff Podcasts. Here's another show you might like.
For Tech's Sake is back with a very special mini-series in partnership with Connect, the Research Ireland Centre for Future Networks and Communications.
That's right, and we'll be releasing weekly episodes exploring the intersection of science, art and society with Connect researchers.
So what does that actually mean?
Well, it means we're going to talk about self-driving cars, when are they going to be a thing and how safe can they be?
Also digital product passports, so what are they and how can they slow down fast fashion?
We've also got artists weighing in on tech's impact on what they do and their impact on research and practice.
Also quantum technologies, from computing to networks to social acceptance.
And everything you need to know about password security, which is a lot.
We're so excited to bring you this mini-series, so make sure you check it out wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey Grace, I've got a bit of a problem and I don't know who else to talk to about it. I've been dating this amazing person for a few months and things are getting really serious, but there's one issue that is kind of ruining it for me, my performance in the bedroom. Every time we start kissing and things start to escalate, I can't shake this overwhelming anxiety. It's like my mind goes into overdrive, worrying about whether I'll be able to please my partner. I feel like my confidence just goes out the window. It's causing some trouble downstairs, if you catch my drift. I just love the term downstairs. Like in the basement. I've tried everything I can think of, deep breaths, focusing on the moment, even distracting myself with random thoughts, but nothing seems to work. It's like my body just shuts down whenever things get intimate and it's starting to put a real strain on our relationship. My partner is understanding and I know they're mad about me, but I can't help but feel like I'm letting them down every time things don't go the way they should. How do I overcome this performance anxiety and enjoy a fulfilling sex life with my partner without all this stress and pressure weighing me down? And that is from, we don't know, is that from a woman, a man, someone non-binary, trans? Like, we've no idea the gender of the person or the gender of the partner. My mind, and this is unconscious bias, my mind is going towards, is this a man? Performance anxiety?
Just because it's like it's visually evident as to whether they can or they can't.
Yeah.
The way it's worded, I feel like it could be
trouble downstairs.
Yeah.
Sounds like erection issues, even though technically, right, it could be trouble getting wet or lubricated, but that's quite, I wouldn't even call that trouble. Like, that's quite normal. Sometimes that you could be really aroused. That's not going to happen. It just sounds like, because there is that, I think, pressure. There's different pressures for men and women, and some overlap, like some can just transcend gender, but with women can often be concerned about how they look and kind of being sexy and desirable, whereas men often it can be a performance.
And once you get in your head with things like this, like I actually have had in the past, like within my friendship circle, males who've had this issue.
Yeah.
And it's often been down to, like, if it happened just once at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because they are actually intimidated by this woman, or let's say this partner, because they really, really like them and want to make this good first sexual impression, that they just get in their head so much that it affects their erection and their performance. Or if it's a woman, just like their performance. And once it happens once, if you're that sort of person that's very emotionally deep or maybe an overthinker, I feel like there's an overthinker and then there's the opposite. They're like two types of people. It's so hard to shake the thought and the pressure you then put on yourself for the next time and the next time. And I think if this is a male, I do think it's difficult because as a female, I may have read this on one of your posts before. I think I could have. Like, we can't be mad at them for not being able to perform. But often there could be this element of she's expressing disappointment or the sexual partner is expressing disappointment in him. Like, how can they not, if it's happened a few times, sigh? Or something. And it's a really difficult one.
Yeah, because we don't actually have information about how the partner is reacting. So my first instinct is there needs to be probably a conversation here. I would nearly be saying to this person, tell your partner. Tell your partner you're just having difficulty getting in the moment. Because even just sharing that, because the partner could be there thinking what's going on. They'll know something is off, and that's going to kind of, like, basically I feel if two partners are left to almost stew on their own,
a problem shared is a problem halved.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking like even sharing it can be a bit of a relief. It
that
can
relief
be.
could be enough to lift the stress as they're causing it.
Because if say if a male partner came to me and they said, you know, like literally what this person has said, I can't help but feel I'm letting you down. I can't get into the moment. I'm having performance anxiety. I would be like, oh my God. Okay, first of all, like, thank you for telling me and trusting me with that. But also, don't worry, like we'll figure it out. I'm not expecting you to perform. Even the word performance, it's so loaded, isn't it? And it's actually used in even medical writing and academic journals, you know, sexual performance.
Is it?
We say achieving orgasm and achieving penetration. And there's all this.
As if it's like some sort of big award or a competition. Like it's not.
Because it's subjective. What is sexual performance? What pressure is this person putting on themselves? I'm wondering. You know.
Yeah, that's it. And no doubt as these, I suppose, encounters go on where it's still not happening, the pressure is just becoming more and more.
Yeah.
And like you said, having a conversation, communication is the backbone of all healthy relationships. You're obviously both very into each other. It's been some time. Communication is only going to bring them closer together. As much as it could be uncomfortable to bring it up and discuss, it's only probably going to help anything else down the line in your relationship that's uncomfortable to discuss to become easier. So I think communication, that's the backbone of all relationships. And then when you communicate an issue to your partner, if it's early days, I think how they comprehend it will tell you a lot about the potentials of your long-term relationship.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like a filter almost, isn't it? It's like, okay.
I think I heard this quote once that was like, I once thought communication was the most important thing in every relationship, but it's not communication, it's comprehension.
Okay.
So once you have communication, that's needed first.
Yeah.
But how is it comprehended? Because you can communicate how you feel or your problems or your stress or your worries or your performance anxiety all you want to someone, but if it's not being comprehended in a way that makes you feel seen and safe and heard and understood, well then it's a recipe for disaster. Does that make sense?
It does. It absolutely. I'm writing it down here. Like comprehension. This is what I need to talk more about. No, you're right. It's one thing speaking up, but then it's how does it land?
Yeah, like there could be. I know this is a word that's overused, but you may have a better one that we could use, Grace. Like there could be trauma from their past where they have vocalized something that wasn't anywhere near as, deep, like it wasn't performance anxiety. It could have been something really simple. And because it wasn't comprehended, or if you were raised in a family where none of your emotional needs, once you vocalized, were, heard. Yeah. And it was just like a pucker up, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Maybe now you're nervous to bring up anything because you feel like no one's ever going to comprehend you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It could be this sort of situation.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I've worked with people before, particularly men, who might be going through something like this in their current relationship. And when I ask them about their past relationship, they've often been in situations where, again, if they're heterosexual or even bisexual, if basically they've been having sex with women, that women will often take offence if they can't get it up, essentially, if they can't get an erection, or even take offence if they can't orgasm. And while I really try and empathise with both sides, because I understand where women, we can turn things on ourselves very quickly. It's like, it must be me, it must be that, it's my fault. But at the same time, that's actually really not helpful to make it about yourself. So then they feel even more guilty. Yeah. Whereas it's probably not about, it's rarely actually about the partner. Yeah. It's usually about the person themselves. And, I'm thinking, if I had this person in front of me, I'd be asking them, okay, let's look outside the bedroom. Let's look at your life in general. Do you find it hard to stay in your body? Do you live, is your head very busy? What's your mindfulness skills like? Mindfulness isn't for everyone. Like it's quite hard and
so difficult.
Some people it's not suited to, but for a lot of people it can help in getting back into our body.
Yeah, like I haven't practiced mindfulness now in months. Yeah. But when I was struggling with my acne, I went through a really bad patch of adult acne.
Okay.
Mindfulness got me through it, meditation, because that was when I looked at myself, I was like, no, this is not my body. I can't. But then when I went and sat down in the garden, crossed my legs in the grass and meditated, it brought me back. Yeah. So I do think in times of it, at those lows in the roller coaster, tough times, meditation and mindfulness can be so powerful. And as much as you might not continue to practice it forever, it has the ability. It's like building those tools and getting them in the toolbox for the first time. Yeah. That could definitely be something to try.
Definitely, because I would be, like that, asking that person what's going on outside of sex. Yeah. Because this probably isn't just happening in a vacuum. It's interesting that they mention, I'm just going to bring the exact wording, I've tried everything I can think of, deep breaths, focusing on the moment, even distracting myself with random thoughts. So first of all, distracting yourself with random thoughts is definitely not the way to go, because then you're actually taking yourself even more out of the situation.
Not to laugh, I'm so curious as to what these random thoughts were.
I know, I don't know either. I actually genuinely don't. And like, again, it's probably, I'm just thinking of sometimes when men are under this pressure to essentially perform kind of like a porn actor, like get an erection, keep it for like, I don't know, an hour, and just be in all these positions and doing all of like basically the leg work, the back work, like this real physical feat. And some people might be into that. Personally, I'm like, I'm not here to like have an Olympic experience. Yeah. I'm here to connect and enjoy pleasure. Yeah. So that can look any different way. Yeah. You don't have to be doing all of this, And for that person maybe to realise that, again, going back to what pressures are you putting on yourself? What way are you viewing sex and performance? If this person is a man, like we're assuming from the way, we're kind of making an educated guess. Yeah. And then, sorry, what did they say? Deep breaths, focusing on the moment. Like, it's just the way they said, I've tried everything I can think of, deep breaths and focusing on the moment. But like, those are huge things. They're not just something you try once. Like I've tried focusing on the moment, it doesn't work. That can take months and years to really hone those. Yeah. The mindfulness, the being present.
Focusing on the moment, like this is just, I guess, me personally. I would rather feel like I'm getting lost in the moment than focus on the moment.
Okay.
I think like focusing on the moment would actually put me in my head too much.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Kind of a flip side of the coin, but I'd rather feel like I'm getting lost in the moment and getting out of my head. The deep breaths and the focus would nearly bring me into it too much.
Okay, yeah.
Just a different way of looking at it.
But that's a really good point, because it might not work for everyone. Like some people, I do work on breath work and I do work on mindful touch, mindful pleasure. But not everyone is going to be suited to that. It kind of depends, again, where is this coming from? And as you said, maybe you can over-focus as well. Something I think that could be useful is, for this person, again, judging from how everything's worded, look at the kind of sex you're having and maybe the kind of sex you're expecting yourself to have, or even your partner might be expect you to have. So if it's say penetrative sex, intercourse, it's such unsexy words. But if it's like penetration focused and they're expected to get an erection and to like basically kind of lead the whole thing.
Yeah.
Take that off the table. Like actually say to your partner, do you mind if we actually just like take penetration, like take penetrative sex off the table for like 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, and just focus on pleasure.
Yeah.
Because we focus way too much on a hard penis when it comes to pleasure and sex. You don't actually need a hard penis to have a good sexual experience.
Yes, I love that.
You actually don't like it's great and it happens and it can be a really important part of a lot of sexual acts.
But there's so many other things you can do to experience pleasure without having that.
100%. And if the pressure is taken off to even get hard, you'll probably end up. You're more likely maybe to actually get an erection.
100%.
Because we don't apply this to women's bodies where we're like, oh, like my vagina has to be wet to have sex. And I don't know, is that a good thing or bad thing? But it's like we can use lube, right? And we find ways around it. So why don't we do it? Why is it the end of the world when someone can't get an erection?
I know.
It shouldn't be. It doesn't help anyone.
I think it's like just societal pressures that have been put on men. A pressure that porn has probably put on men. And I think as well as that, wonderful advice. Another thing I'd say is we have no information about his or her lifestyle. Could diet be affecting it in some shape or form? Your lack of sleep or stress in work or family situations. Like stress. When I'm stressed about work, I can't. I'm way too in my head about work and I can't switch off. And it's like, but that should be a stress relief. And I'm like, no, I'm too stressed about work to even. And then like the second the work is done, or I'm on the holiday, or the deadline has been reached, I'm like a new person when it comes to my libido. Stress really directly affects libido for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, when you think of going on holidays or weekends away, that's when people are more likely to have sex because they're hopefully not checking their emails and being pulled back into that workspace. Again, as you said, we don't know what this person's lifestyle is like, but I think that's a good point with regards to holistically what else is going on, because we can't just expect, ourselves to snap into sexual mode. I actually, when I did an episode with, it's out already with Carla Kay, I think it's I could get this wrong, I think it's episode 2 of the G-Spot. She was quoting a really good a male sex coach called Cam Fraser, who I'd recommend following. And he was explaining that some people take seconds to turn on, some people take minutes, some people take days to get turned on. And that's totally fine. Like, this person could be under a lot of pressure and feeling like, I just have to suddenly be sexual now because my partner's expecting it. Your partner mightn't even be expecting it. But conversation, look at what else is happening. Maybe take the sexual act that is stressing you off the table and refocus that sexual energy. You still have a great time.
Absolutely.
Toys, that's why toys are there as well, to help us out sometimes when like our bodies aren't playing ball.
There's so much advice there, and I think every single step there is going to hopefully help him or her, but communication being the first point to call.
Yeah, and comprehension.
Yes!
As you said. I love this. Okay, that's my new tagline. Hi, Grace Alice. I'm a 40-year-old woman and I'm in a situation that's causing me a lot of inner conflict. I'm a secondary school teacher and I'm very attracted to a former student. He is now 22 years old. Okay, so she's 40 and he's 22. And I was his teacher in 5th and 6th year up until 4 years ago. I didn't feel attracted to him when I was teaching him, nor have I ever felt this way about any student, but we've crossed paths a few times since he graduated. I recognised him straight away, but obviously he looks different and seems very mature for his age. We have run into each other on nights out and recently on some of the dating apps. I really wanted to match with him, but I passed because I'm so conflicted. He has been very flirty in person. I definitely get the feeling that if I reciprocated, something would happen. I'm really confused. On one hand, he's an adult and not my student anymore, so surely that makes it okay and very much consensual, etc. On the other hand, I know that there will be people who strongly disagree and may judge me very harshly. I know that I have felt a certain way about older men getting in relationships with former students, but this feels different. Basically, I don't know what to do. I'm very much tempted to reach out to him and see what happens, but I don't know if I should or not, or if it is the right thing to do. How do I make this decision? Oh my God, that's a
really big dilemma.
We definitely can't give a clear cut.
No.
Yeah, go for it, or no, don't go.
There's going to be pros
and
cons here of both sides.
It's Because when you initially think...
I have so many thoughts.
Yeah. I know this. So like my initial thoughts just in general, whenever even the term teacher and student, I kind of like, oh, like, okay, he's not your student anymore, right? The dynamic... Yeah, if
like,
you know what I mean.
Technically, it's not illegal.
No, wait, and it's not.
So that's the main thing. Yeah. You're not going to be breaking the law.
Yeah, which is good. We don't want to encourage breaking the law.
But like at the same time,
22.
It's a big age gap.
Yes, 18 years.
18 years. So one question, I have so many things that come to mind, but one that comes to mind for me is, if you reach out, a side note, I think reaching out isn't what I do. I think I'd actually do the whole like dating app, see if you match, if he pops up again, or if you're out and you have a conversation, feel it out. I just feel like if reaching out is sending a text or a message and you're anxiously awaiting a response, I feel like just in case you're reading the situation wrong, I'd wait on, I don't know, that would be me. I'd wait until you're in person and then feel it out.
Yeah.
But what do you want from it? Like, do you want a bit of fun, or are you actually looking to build a long-term relationship? Because obviously she's thinking about it a lot and she's curious and she does want to reach out and she wants to see what happens. But I think before doing that, you have to ask yourself, well, what do you want to happen?
Yeah.
Like, do you think he may want to actually enter into a serious long-term relationship and commit to a 40-year-old at 22? He might.
Yeah.
But are you okay with him not wanting that? And the possibility of things ending abruptly if they do start, because it's just a bit of fun. Do you know, like, these are all the thoughts in my mind.
No, I know. There's
like, do you want a
lot
long-term relationship?
Yeah.
Is that what you're pursuing here? Or are you reaching out for a bit of fun that we don't know? Like, maybe she doesn't want children and that's fine if she doesn't. But if she's someone who does, you kind of have to think, well, if you're 40 and he's 22, will he? Do you know what I mean? Maybe she doesn't and that's fine too. But there's just so many questions around the future that it's very easy to get caught up in the lustful feelings of the moment.
Course, yeah.
That I think she'd have to really ask herself some of those questions and wonder, is he on the same page?
Yeah, because it's very... We don't know how he's actually feeling. I mean, it said he's really flirty, but...
People can just be flirty by manner.
And also, part of me is thinking it's possible he could get off on the fact that, like, oh, this is my ex-teacher, like a little bit of a fantasy going on.
I've heard the way guys talk, and it's like, you know, will he be the big lad if he's able to go back and say, yeah, I got with Miss... Do you know, whatever it is, yeah.
And I'm thinking then, she's still a teacher, obviously. Now, and I'm just thinking of someone who has worked in schools.
The judgment that may come her way.
Yeah, and I've never been in this situation. But the fear of, I suppose, he's probably going to tell people, right? If you end up sleeping with him, it's likely he's going to tell people. Are you okay with people knowing... that, again, it's not illegal, right? But, like, is that going to change how students currently view you? If it becomes a thing that, oh, she... Do you know the way things grow legs? And we can't control what people say about us, and we can't control, you know, vicious gossip and rumours. But... See, part of me is thinking, if the genders were reversed, I would be having a much more visceral reaction, to be honest. If it was a 40-year-old man and a 22-year-old ex-student, I would be having a bit more like, oh, she was your student only a few years. And I know it's complicated. Yeah. Because, you know, we can't ignore that.
It's so complicated. Like,
different feelings come up, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to say now, it's different, but there's an age gap in my relationship.
Same in mine,
So Max is 23 and I'm 30.
Yeah.
And when I first started getting to know him more, I've known him my whole life, but obviously never looked at it like that because the age gap was totally different when he was far younger and I was older. And then I got him on the radio to do an interview about his career. And it was kind of like, oh my goodness, like, you've grown to be way taller than me. You're no longer a little Max and you're so handsome and you're so mature. But he's younger than me and I'm sure he's not interested in me. So I just completely closed off any more thoughts of it. That was it. It was just like, oh wow, you have grown to be such a handsome, tall, respectable young man.
Handsome, tall.
Oh, dark. Yeah, anyway. No, but at the same time, I was like, the age gap, like, shut it off because he won't want it. But then it was kind of like, actually, as the weeks and months went on, we grew so close and now I'm in the best relationship I've ever been in my life. But overcoming that age gap at the beginning was something that I personally struggled with and he didn't. Because, is that a societal thing? I don't know. But I think I was like, well, is he going to want to commit to something that young? But also, what are people going to think?
Yeah.
That was a huge fear of mine. And there were some comments that came my way.
Okay.
Do you know, like just one or two social media messages, DMs or little things. But I think what helped me most was the communication with him from the very beginning. That I knew exactly what it was he wanted and wanted to build. It was the same with me. There was no fear whatsoever and everyone else's opinions just didn't matter. Now, luckily, there's been very few of those. And we're pretty happy to not put ourselves out there, but like he does social media too, so you have to. Now, 7 years versus this difference, which is what, 18?
18, I think we
18
said,
years. It's a totally different scenario.
And I think it's because I have no issue with age gaps. I really don't. I think like it's not as simple as we all have to be in the same age brackets.
Yeah, until I came across one, I didn't realise how minimal of a thing it was.
Well, yeah, like my partner he's always like 9 years, I'm like 10 years. It's 9 and a bit years, right? So I'm 32. Yes, I'm 32. I forgot for a second. I'm 32. And he's 41. Right, so nine and a bit years. But no, when I met him, I was 27. He was 37. But that felt so... I just forget we even have an age gap because it really doesn't feel that way.
Yeah.
And we'd both had a few relationships and like I was the younger person, but I wasn't a bit green. Like I was no sweet summer child by then.
You're so mature at that age. Anyway, you know. But you see, that was my fear, that if the man is older, I felt like that was so much more acceptable from a societal standard. Yeah. And that's where I had a lot of fear around people's opinions and judgment because I was the older one. But again, in this dilemma, like we're both here saying age gaps are fine. Yeah. But she's the older one. Do you think, Grace, that society maybe looks at it a little bit different when the woman is older?
So with that, yeah, I mean, I definitely think women who have especially sexual relationships with younger men are ridiculed and kind of you're a cougar and whatnot. Where it's assumed that men want to be with younger women, if that makes sense. It's kind of like, even if we look at Hollywood, it's so like Leonardo DiCaprio is, I forget what age he is. What age is he? 40s, late 40s, something like that. And he's always with like 18 to 25-year-olds.
Yeah,
and it's
but I do think there is like different types of men. Obviously, we know this, but I do actually think that there are genuinely some men out there who are okay with being with older women. When I say older, like I do. Obviously, I'm biased now because I'm in a relationship with a bit of an age gap. But I do think anywhere between 2 to kind of 10 years, once you reach a certain age, there's still a lot of mutual understanding. There's a lot of similar maturity levels. Yeah. Your circles overlap a little bit. And I think you can still think about building a life together, which is pretty much on par. Like no one's going to be far older than the other. Do you know what I mean? When you're thinking about a long-term future and life together. But 18 years, I just can't quite wrap my head around how I would feel comfortable with that. I wouldn't. Yeah. Because I'm the type who wanted to find like true love, like this Disney story. Do you know what I mean? And there's no story like a Disney story. They don't exist. But she just sounds like someone who's very in tune with her emotions, very deep, very self-aware. And I think it's so easy to get caught up in a lustful thought. Yeah. Like when she's 65, Do you know?
Quick maths here. But see, it's funny that, neither of us are right or wrong, but it's funny that you're kind of lean towards the path of looking forward to the future as if there's a relationship or potential relationship, whereas I'm looking at it as just sex because that's what I'm getting from it. We don't know. We actually don't know what she's looking for. And that's probably a question to you said that at the start. What do you want out of this? What's, and I think she needs to ask herself that. And not that, again, that's going to clarify the answer any better. If it's just a sexual relationship, to be honest, what I would be saying, is it worth it? If it's just going to be a sexual fling and it's going to be a bit of fun, and yes, it's very flattering probably that someone so young is flirting with you. Yeah. No shade, no hate at all. Like, obviously, these could be both gorgeous people, but you know what I mean. Especially as women, we're conditioned to think we get like more invisible as we get older, which is so annoying. That's a whole conversation. But if it's just going to be, a bit of fun, a sexual fling. Although, yes, okay, so a lot of people would argue that's harmless and it's legal and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, is it worth it though, again, I'm just thinking of her career and her job. She's not going to lose it, but are people going to view her differently?
I mean, there's the Irish mindset. There's small town mindset. Do you know what? It's in every country. It's not just Ireland. And I do think, personally, calling spade a spade, she will be looked at differently.
Oh, I think she would be too.
Yeah, it's so not fair.
And that's not saying, that's not like making your decision for you. It's just like thinking about that. Now, to be fair, she's kind of said there will be people who judge me very harshly. And what I kind of, on a general topic when we're talking about age gaps and that, see, there's a form of power dynamic at play here. It's not just an age gap. I think it's the whole teacher-student thing that's adding another kind of layer to it. But, when we look at an age gap, it's not always about like the number of years. It's the age in those years. So that's why I personally do find it, generally speaking, a bit off when you have 40-year-old men consistently going after 18, 19-year-old young women.
I would
It's a pattern. The developmental stage is completely different to those kind of things are what I struggle with personally.
I would too.
And just because something is legal doesn't always mean it's the right option or the right thing.
Is it okay?
So we don't have a clear answer.
There's no.
What would your gut instinct say? If you had to say go for it or leave it.
My gut would say leave it.
I would be too.
Yeah, my gut would say leave it. Now, I am the type of person, and I think given your role as well, Grace, you might be too, but like I'm very deep. I feel everything so deeply, and that can be both a strength and a weakness. But if something like this, if I was in her shoes, for me, it wouldn't be worth the inner turmoil I would have afterwards walking into the school. Because let's face it, you can't be guaranteed that he's not going to speak about it, even if you ask him to. You just can't trust that. You don't know him on that deep a level to know, is he that trustworthy or not? You can't. You have to kind of presume that he would and presume that it would get out. I could not deal with the inner turmoil of what people would think, the way I would be looked at, the way the parents of my current students may talk. You just like this all could get out, and you need to be prepared for how you're going to feel if it does. Personally, I could not deal with that.
Yeah, it would make me very anxious, to be honest.
If you're the type of person that really doesn't give a hoot, fair play. I wish I could take a leaf out of your book on some things. But my gut says leave it. And that's probably a lot of a reflection on who I am as a person and what I could deal with. But I just think it's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm thinking as well, again, as someone who thinks things through probably too much sometimes. And
here's your sister.
Is very generally like I do grapple with anxiety. Like I do think a lot into the future. Too much, I have to rein myself back in. But
I try to be open-minded, and I know you do too.
100%.
So, like there is that. I do try, but I just can't see it.
And essentially, if this person did come back and was like, "Oh, look, we did end up having a thing," I wouldn't be like, "Shame."
No.
I'm just, again, it's a dilemma. So she's obviously struggling with the decision. But I would be thinking as well, something that would be playing on my mind was like, okay, so he's 22. Technically, he's legally an adult. Here comes the word legal again. So technically, he's able to make this decision, right? And we can argue he's an informed, consenting adult. But he's 22 now. is he going to feel differently about it when he's 40? And we can't know that. It's not an answer we can have. But sometimes with just certain, not every age gap at all, but just there's certain scenarios where I'm like, we can all verbally say, okay, yes, this is fine, this is fun. But I know not this exact situation, but I was with older men when I was in my early 20s who didn't treat me all that well, but because they were older, that was all part of the appeal. And, I felt flattered and I felt mature for my age and I felt seen in that way and grown up. And now I look back and no, I wouldn't say it was predatory. I wouldn't say it was anything. It wasn't even vaguely illegal. But I was like, oh, that gives me a bit of a weird feeling now because, yes, I was legally an adult, but I don't know, it was just the way I think maybe, again, I was treated. And the dynamics still weren't very healthy. So I'm not saying this is the case here, but it's just something maybe
it's just as time goes on, you could both view it very differently. And she might too. I think if you were like away on a holiday and in Bali or something and you came across a 22-year-old and you wanted to go for it, like, look, no one's going to judge you then. But this is like the town that you teach in.
Yeah, see, that's the thing as well.
Yeah.
And now I am glad to hear this isn't a pattern. This isn't something that's happened before, because then I would be saying, oh my God, like, you probably need to look at that a bit closer.
Yeah, there's something deeper going on here.
So look, we can't decide for you, but we've tried our best.
I think
look
with
at
all these
angles.
dilemmas, it's nearly impossible with some dilemmas that come in to give you a set yes or no. But hearing all of the pros and cons can just help so much. When it comes to the decision that they essentially have to make at the end of the day, because no one can make up your mind for you.
Just to think through it. And I just feel like this is the kind of dilemma where I'm going to get messages about this and people are going to feel very strongly. But I would say just remember that with these dilemmas as well, don't send me mean messages. No, I'm joking. But with these dilemmas, remember that we all project stuff onto every dilemma. So like we, in this, we're trying to kind of like look at it from our point of view and different angles. So whether you feel strongly one way or the other, that's actually fine.
Everything is just like our opinion, your opinion, and every opinion is different, and opinions are not fact or truth.
No. And I think particularly with age, just even taking age gaps and that kind of power dynamic that isn't, there's probably an echo of the power dynamic, but it's not, they're not actively in this obviously teacher student, which I do think is completely unacceptable. Even if the student is 18, I just think, no, it's not on. But, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so sorry, even like, I suppose considering that, just, it is sometimes a case by case, particularly with the age gap. Like we can't sit here and say, no person of this age should ever be with anyone of this age. We can't say that. But sometimes you just kind of have a gut feeling where you're like, okay, but why is this person so...
And I think potentially for this woman, is it her head and her heart that's at play? Do you know what I mean? Like, I have a feeling her gut is saying it's not a good idea, but her head is like, but I really want to. And you have to go with your gut.
Just have a little fantasy about it and, enjoy that. Sometimes you just got to do that and leave it at that, because you know what, in a month from now, he could be gone off somewhere out of sight, and you might be like, thank God I actually didn't actually do anything.
And you could be so caught up in this thought right now that you're not opening up your eyes to other possibilities around you.
100%. Well, that was an interesting one.
I loved it though.
And it's interesting that, you've come across a little bit of judgment for your relation. A little bit.
Odd, like,
but there's
so
always
small.
Going to be someone, isn't there?
But you know what's happened more so than judgment? It's getting a message from someone or two going, don't worry about what people will say, like, yous get on so well together. And I've actually been like, okay, people haven't actually said anything.
Yeah, now I'm worried.
Now I'm worried. It's just been like one or two videos that might have gone viral where people are like, he looks so much younger than you. And I don't know. I don't think he does, but obviously I see things differently because I've got like my rose tinted glasses on or whatever. There has been a little bit of it, but when we are both on social media, I think you just kind of have to expect that, like, do you know? Very little, to be fair. Everyone has just been so lovely because I suppose I've done social media for so long and always shared my relationship status on it. somewhat. As in, people knew when I was single anyway. Because I would say that I was single. If I was seeing someone, I just wouldn't really say a whole lot. But I always said I'd never in a million years ever share my boyfriend on social media. And then when it came to actually getting into a relationship and having a partner, I guess the fact that he does social media made it different. But I was just like, why? I feel so calm about this. Whereas I never felt calm about it before.
Interesting.
But I think that just goes to show, do you know, anyone I was with before now, I didn't feel very safe with. You know, we all just take every day as it comes. But no, everyone has been so kind on social media because I think they can just see the happiness. Like Evoke did an article about the two of us recently and how we met, which was really nice. And initially I was like, oh God, what way are things going to be twisted here? What if the headline is like the age gap? But it wasn't mentioned at all, which was really nice.
Good. And people who know you as well, you know, we often have to come back to, especially you have a public profile, you've social media, all that stuff. And people will make comments. That's the way it works. But going back to who personally knows you, and they know you're not like hunting for a toy boy and trying to take advantage of someone younger. You're not in that space. It happened organically, and you're so well suited, and there's mutual respect, and it's a healthy relationship. You know, from everything you've said. So it's always trying to go back to, okay, but what do the people who actually know me think? Because they're the people who really can see it.
Exactly.
Rather than people, again, projecting stuff onto you.
Like even just sitting here thinking about it, I can't stop smiling about us. Because it's just, isn't that so cheesy?
No, that's lovely.
Oh God, I'm getting too soft to me old age.
No, I love that. Because I'm like that with my partner. I'm like, I'd say make people gawk. Even though we wouldn't be on, I wouldn't be like, oh my, you know, I wouldn't put a load online. But like I get, like I can't wait to see him now later. And like I left yesterday and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see Ivan. So that's a nice feeling. That's what everyone deserves.
It is. Someone told me once, and this might be a nice note to add in. Someone told me once there's a difference between settling and settling down. And not to say that, you know, anyone is settling per se, and you're never in, you know, a position to tell someone that they're settling. I don't like that either.
No.
But I think it's just years of being single for so long and then entering into a relationship, and that has made me realise now, oh my God, there is such a difference, and I didn't know it before now because I never sat here smiling about a relationship before. And I think that's, and you're the same, that's the way it should be when it is safe.
I love that. What a nice note to end on. So tell us, before we finish, a little bit about like your own pod and anything else you're doing that you want to share.
Thank you. So my own podcast is The Dating Games, which Grace Alice has featured on as well. And no doubt that's going to be the most listened to episode by the time this comes out.
That'd be great.
Our episode there will also be out. And I guess that one is interesting because I started it with a friend of mine, Damien Broderick, back when we were both single. And now he had to walk away from it for professional reasons and personal reasons. And it's just myself hosting with guests. So it's actually been probably like a nice development to the podcast because now we have so many more thoughts and opinions and personalities coming in. My social media is where I continue to share a lot of my story and just what I'm up to. It used to always be fitness content, and now I just try to keep it all very balanced because I'm like, I don't want to be fashion, I don't want to be just fitness. It's just about trying to navigate life, being at the, I suppose, optimal sort of mindset that I can. And obviously fitness is a huge part of it still for me. So it's at Nathalie Lennon _ and I spell Nathalie with a H just to be awkward. And then I'm on the radio in Kilkenny from time to time, Kilkenny and Carlow. So if you ever pass in Kilkenny or Carlow or surrounding counties, you'll get me on KCLR sometimes.
Great. I love, like, Nathalie with the H. It looks so lovely. And then like my Kerry accent or diction struggles with the TH so much. I was like, I'm going to keep calling her Nathalie. I find it really hard I had
this not argument but like debacle with my mother recently because I have spent my whole life particularly I say from when I turned 12 or 13 where people actually start trying to pronounce things a little bit clearer, because when you're a child you're just like Natalie, like you're a very well elocuted, is that the word, child, if you say Natalie. But my mum said my name in the car once. I was like, Mum, say that again. She was like, Natalie. I was like, you do the sound.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Why did you put a H there if you don't even say Nathalie?
I know.
So turns out I'm the only one that calls myself my actual
Your
name.
literal mom has trouble pronouncing your name.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Well, thanks so much, Nathalie. That was as best as I can do.
Thank you, Grace Alice, for having me.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much to PlayBlue.ie, sponsor of the G-Spot podcast. Don't forget to check out the episode notes to enter our super exciting competition and be in with the chance of winning all of my Season 2 toy recommendations. Good luck!
This show is part of the Head Stuff Podcast Network, a hub for the creative and the curious. Shows are produced in association with Head Stuff and the Podcast Studios Dublin. Find out more or become a member at headstuffpodcasts.com.